Hello, everyone, and welcome to the thru Recovery Life Podcast. And today we have a speaker. We have Ray from Bradford, Massachusetts, who is going to share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Sit back and enjoy. All right. Thank you, Ray. It's all yours.
Okay. Thank you, John. And good afternoon, kids. My name is Ray, and I'm an alcoholic. Now, I do refer to people as kids, and especially in this fellowship, for a few reasons. One is that I am blessed to be the father of 9 children. I have 8 sons and a daughter. And the second reason is that we are told we are all children of God. And for the third reason, and a very important reason, I think that children are very teachable. And I think with humility, it allows us to be teachable. It's very important that we remain teachable, because if we can't learn, then we can't grow. And so, you wonder when you're asked to do such a podcast, thinking, well, how can I make this a little bit more entertaining? And I could tell you a few bad alcoholic jokes, like why does the bad comic perform in comedy clubs? Who's an alcoholic? Because he went there for the booze. Or what's the least favorite part of a baseball game for an alcoholic? That would be the bottom of the 5th. And did you hear about the alcoholic who wanted to be a lawyer? He couldn't pass the bar. And so we could go on and talk about and have some comedy laughs, because we're not a glum lot, they tell us. But I prefer to play this in a serious fashion, because I believe that when we first come in this program, it's a matter of life and death. And there are people, especially new people walking in the door, who are not very stable at the time. And so they can't understand why, people are laughing and joking around and what have you. These are people who have recovered. And our book tells you that you can recover. You can recover from that hopeless period of mind and body. And so we want to keep that in mind as we walk along the what I call the AA brick road. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's a yellow brick road. I call it the AA brick road, and we're all like the characters in the Wizard of Oz. We have the Wicked Witch who could cast all kinds of aversions to us, and that's life. And if we're like the Scarecrow, we're very flammable. So if you could toss a ball of fire at us, or if we're the Tin Man, she could make it rain on us, freeze us up, and don't have to do much to scare the Cowardly Lion. And so it's a lot like the Wizard of Oz. And one of my daughters took me to see Wicked, the Broadway show in Boston. But and so life is a lot like the Wizard of Oz. And so I'll tell you that I was born in the witch city of Salem, Massachusetts. And my life is similar to a novel that Stephen King could write. And what's different about my story, I believe, is that, people become alcoholics for any number of reasons. I'm a little bit different, because my alcoholism started when I was 7, not from drinking, from stress. And for about 20 years, we built up that stress. And then I had a 42-year career, which added to that stress. And of course, I've already told you that I'm fortunate to have 9 children, but that's not without its stresses. And so as a youth, I also grew up in abject poverty. My father was one of 16 children, and never I went to school past the third grade, and never made more than $5,000 a year gross in his life. And so we grew up in abject poverty. We lived in a 160-year-old family-owned home. We lived on the upper second floor. And that apartment had no hot water. It had no central heat. Central heat was the oil stove in the kitchen. Did not have a toilet until I was 5. I used to use a pot. And when I was 5, we had a toilet installed in my room, and never had a bathtub until I got married. And so when anybody in the family needed to take a bath, they would heat some water on the oil stove and announce to the mother and father or whoever it was that they were taking a bath, and heat up the kettle, a little hot, a little cold, and that's what you did. So I didn't really think it was abnormal at the time, but it certainly was. And it's hard to believe that you can even tell that story and it could be credible. But the other problem that's added to my stresses was that my mother went through the change of life very, very early in her life, and which resulted in severe mental issues. And she tried to commit suicide 3 times. I was 7 years old at the time. First time I found her in her bed, she had overdosed with pills. And so I sent her to the hospital and had her stomach pumped out, and she came back home. And then another afternoon, I was outside playing with a friend of mine. I was wondering why she was particularly quiet. And after my friend left, I went up to the apartment, went into the living room, and she was laying on the couch in an 8-foot pool of blood. She had sliced her wrists. And she had lost 11 or 12 pints of blood in her body. 911 was not in operation back in those days, so I called the police department. And I was 7 years old. And then when she came back from that, and, she was in a mental institution for a while, and she came back from that, and I was sitting in the schoolroom in Salem, Mass, and heard the fire trucks, and walked home. And when I got home, there were fire trucks and police cars around the house. She had gone into the basement and poured gasoline over her head and lit herself on fire, which her ears were gone, nose, face, hair, burns down to her waist. So she was in hospital for about a year after that. And so I had no brothers or sisters. We had really no close family. As I said, my father never graduated past the 3rd grade and couldn't read or write. So I was really running the household when I was 7 or 8 years old, in addition to going to visit my mother in mental institutions every Saturday with my aunt. Through the padlocked doors, and with people with issues hanging around, and it was very, very stressful. So stress added to my life, and so it came to a point where I had to decide for myself what direction was I going to take. I could have gone either way. I could have decided to do nothing with my life, or I could decide to do something with my life. So I decided to do the latter. And when I started to buckle down in high school, I ended up to be a class treasurer and class president of the National Honor Society. And so I was driven, which again was a lot of stress. And so still, back in high school, I was not drinking. I was not, I've never, still to this day, I've never gone to a keg party. Alcohol was not part of my life until I got married, until I got a job, until I got a real job. And I got married, and my father-in-law introduced me to martinis. And And so I kind of liked the relief that it gave me for a bit. And so the babies kept coming, and we had a lot of pressure and had a lot of financial issues, and I was starting a new career and what have you. And ultimately ended up in a major corporation that everybody would recognize. And ultimately, I worked for 42 years. My final position was aviation engineer. A lot of pressure still, because I made life or death decisions 12 hours a day, in addition to having the family to raise. And my wife developed some severe health issues, including a hole in her brain, and lack of flow in her spinal cord, and you name it. So a lot of pressure. And so at the same time, my father, who was really living like a hermit, ended up breaking his hip. And so I was trying to take care of him. And so a lot of pressure. And so I started to drink vodka. And I was sort of in a perpetual state of intoxication. But I kept working. So it was just a state of a controlled intoxication. So nothing funny about it. But so what happened one day is that, of course, I used to drive around with a bottle of fifth of vodka under the seat and what have you. And in 1990, I got arrested. I was a poster boy for good behavior. I grew up in a Catholic religion. I was a head altar boy. Thought I was going to be a priest at one point, but that doesn't. I don't know how I explained the 9 children. But in any event, I thought I was going to be a priest, and was the head altar boy. So I was the poster boy for good behavior. Never got into trouble. And I find myself being arrested and being sent to jail. So I got out of jail in 1990 and went to go to court, and they suggested that I attend 3 AA meetings in addition to some counseling and what have you. And I was the type of person where if I made a mistake, then I was going to do the right thing and pay my dues, which I did. And they had recommended 3 AA meetings, and I thought, well, like any good alcoholic, if 3 is good, more are better. So I went to a meeting every week, but religiously, 1 a week, every Sunday for 2 years. And I didn't need, I was a smart guy. I'm a very intelligent person. I'm a smart guy. I knew I made a mistake, but fine. I'm paying my dues. I didn't need the big book. Didn't get involved in service. I didn't need the 12 and 12. I didn't need any of that stuff. I just went to the, sit in the back meeting or sit in the front. I wasn't ashamed to be an AA, but nevertheless, that I was just getting my ticket punched. And so at the end of 2 years, I was presented with a 2-year medallion, and I graduated mentally. And so, I stayed sober 5 years. Celebrated 10 years sober. Was sober 15 years. Celebrated 20 years of sobriety. But on the 23rd year, life threw me some fastballs, knuckleballs, curveballs, sliders. My wife got more and more ill, more and more pressures with the children, more and more pressures at work. Now I'm getting a little bit older, trying to fight to keep my job like everybody else did. And so after 23 years, I decided, like the big book said, vodka was the problem. Vodka, that's too strong. So let's do a little bit of wine. Wine might be helpful. I probably did a little bit too much wine too for about a year. And then we come around one holiday season, my daughter's birthday is in November, and one of my sons is in December, and I was taking them out on a pre-holiday concert evening and dinner, and I had special gifts for them and what have you. And I went to pick my son up at work the day we were supposed to go out for that celebration. And he said to me, "You've been drinking, we're not going tonight." And like any good alcoholic, I thought to myself, well, maybe you're not going, but I'm still going. And anger is a whale of a trigger. And so I decided to go, and I decided to fuel myself a little bit more wine. And you can imagine what happened. Lightning struck again. The blue lights people pulled me over. 23 years after the initial issue. And I was bailed out of jail by two of my sons 5 days before Christmas. Now, if you don't think that's a Black Christmas, then I hope you never experience it. 9 children, 8 grandchildren, and there you go. How does such a smart guy make the same mistake twice? So, I went through all the rigmarole that you go through, all the expenses you go through, the lawyers and all that other baloney. And I thought, how stupid can you be? And I thought, for 3 months, how stupid can you be? And then 3 months later, on April 6th, which was opening day for the Boston Red Sox, I thought that would be a good day to remember it by. I went to a noontime meeting of AA, and I got up and I announced that I was back. But this time, I decided that I would sample everything on the AA buffet. Because AA is a buffet. Have your open discussion meetings, you have big book meetings, you have 12-step meetings, you have service, you have a lot of things on the buffet. And if I first go around, I was happy with the oatmeal. Because as I told you, I was a smart guy. And so that's made all the difference. And within 3 months, I had co-founded Sunday morning step study meeting, which last week celebrated 8 years. And so it's made all the difference. And also, I found the solution, not only a solution for me, but the solution for everybody, as I feel it is, in the big book, in How It Works in Spirituality. And How It Works is page 58 through 60 in the big book. And for me, it's a template for how to stay sober for life. This is this problem. When we go to AA, first of all, AA is not for people who need it, in my opinion. It's not for people who want it. It's for people who do it. And we always say that these things are all suggested, but nevertheless, there are 60 to 100 musts in the big book. And so there are certainly things you need to do to take responsibility for your problem, because the problem is not alcohol. The problem is alcoholism, not alcohol or drugs. Those are the symptoms. The problem is life. And so, to me, I like to boil the AA program down in 3 simple phases. Phase 1 would be to stop drinking or using. Phase 2 would be to find out why you had to drink or use to deal with life. Because, in my opinion, that's the problem. And once you get those 2, and even in parallel to that, phase 3 is to use what you've learned, is try to help save somebody else's life. Try to help somebody else stay sober. Because when we take a look at how it works, and how it works at the Zoom meeting that we go to every morning, we read it every morning. And I had gone to another meeting years before this, and they used to read it every Friday and discuss it every Friday. And, I went through this for about a year, and I thought to myself, why do we read this every week? There again, I'm a smart guy. I understand it. What's to discuss about it, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, I got the educational awakening, educational spiritual awakening, and the light bulb came on. And I realized that the reason why we read how it works is because that's how it works. This is the template to stay sober, because we don't come to AA to learn how to drink responsibly. And many people can stay sober for a year or two, and they don't need the God involvement. They don't need a lot of things. And I stayed sober for 23 years without the entire program. And this program has worked for millions of people over the years. And who am I to say that it doesn't work? So, it's the type of thing that if I were to take the big book, and the big book has approximately 600 pages in there, and the 12 and 12 has about 200 pages. And I would take the big book into a cancer hospital in Boston, which is close by, and I were to tell the people in the cancer ward that if you live to pages 58 through 60 in this book, your cancer will be in remission. Now, who would not take me up on that offer? Well, that's what we're saying, really, to alcoholics. We're saying that if you live to those 2.5 pages of how it works, then you will be in recovery. And it's how it works says, the first line says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And then it says in the first paragraph, it talks about honesty 3 times, because, we need to be willing, and we need to be humble, and we need to have an open mind, but we need to be honest with ourselves. And it says in the first paragraph, the second paragraph, it says, if you have decided you want what we have, that's proposition 1, and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. And those steps are the 12 steps, in addition to the rest of the information. Because the rest of the pages in the big book, 597.5 pages, in my opinion, are all there to help you understand how it works, those pages 58 to 60. And so I tend to be a by the book guy with the big book, and I tend to live to what the big book tells us to do. And so this is not my program. This is the big book program. This is the AA program as it's laid out. And that's, I've tried to do it as it wasn't laid out. I tried to do it Ray's way. And Ray's way didn't work. It worked for a couple decades. It didn't work forever. And here's the problem. We were going to be addicts until the day we die. We will never recover. We will never be cured, but we can recover. Because what we get is, if we work at it every day, we get a daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual condition. And this program tells us that, one of the problems we had is that we had a lack of power to do good. I used to say that we had a lack of willpower, and I changed my opinion on that, because I think that when we were out there running, we had plenty of willpower if it were to get drugs or booze. It didn't matter whether there was a snowstorm going on, 2.5 feet of snow. We needed to get booze. We could get out there barefoot to get the booze or the drugs. So it's not that we had a lack of power. We had a lack of power to do right. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get the power to do the right thing, selfless right thing. A lot of people ask me, tell me, say in meetings that, how do I know what God's will is? And for me, it's very simple. God's will is doing the next right, selfless thing. And I think if I do the next right, selfless thing, then I'm sure that my God would approve of that. And because my God does not make personal appearances, my God talks to me through people, and I did not find my God up in the clouds. I found him deep in my heart, deep inside of me, and it's made all the difference. So the big book tells us that on page 77, our real purpose in everything that we're doing, we're trying to get our lives in order, but our real purpose in this program is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to this God of our understanding and the people about us. And the people about us is about 8 billion at this juncture. Not just alcoholics or addicts, but everybody. You know, how do we treat everybody? And how do we become that type of person who does not have to use a mind-altering substance in order to deal with life? I think that's what we're all trying to do. So I used to do, like I told you, at my first go around, I religiously went to one meeting a week, and now I go to about 4 meetings a day. It's a lot easier now on Zoom and what have you. And I go to about 4 meetings a day, and 2 or 3 live meetings a week. And so that comes up to almost 30 meetings a week. And I can do that because I'm retired. But do I really need to go to 30 meetings a week? No, probably not. Maybe I only need to go to 1 meeting. Problem is, I don't know which one. I don't know which one is going to tell me something that I need to hear. And I don't know which one I'm going to say something that might make people think again and might make a difference. And that's what we're trying to do. So for me, Alcoholics Anonymous is not only it's under the guise of a stop drinking program. It really is not a stop drinking program. It's a new way of life program, and there is life after addiction. So, if you're wondering what AA has to give you, you just have to think about the fact that when I speak at rehabs, and I speak generally 3 or 4 times at rehabs, and spoke at one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And I tell people that are there, I tell them that it's not unusual when you check into a rehab to feel useless, hopeless, or worthless. And there was one woman who had been to rehabs 18 different times I spoke to this weekend. And I tell them that they're not hopeless, useless, or worthless, because I remind them that we should probably all be dead anyway for doing what we did before we entered into these rooms. But we're not dead. And maybe there's a reason why we're not dead. And I tell them that, one of the problems they're going to have when they check out of the rehab is they're going to go home. And if they live with people that aren't alcoholics or drug addicts, they have a hard time understanding why we just can't stop drinking or using. And I tell them that one of the reasons why we come to AA is because no matter where you go on the face of the earth, which meeting you go to, everybody in that room is either a professional drug addict or alcoholic. And those people get it. They understand you. And you may say something, you may watch somebody come through that door at AA that looks terrible, probably is contemplating suicide, and you might say something to that person in a friendly manner that may save their life. How much more useful can you be? And maybe that's why you're recovering. Maybe that's why you're here, and maybe somebody will tell you someday that, thank you for saving my life. And so that's what AA is to me, my friends. And if you haven't tried it, give it a try. Keep an open mind. You need an open mind and you need willingness. And if you have those two things, then there is hope. And that's all I've got for you, my friends. I'm Ray, and I'm an alcoholic.
Fantastic, Ray. And I was waiting for you to give your signature share. You know, I'll give you a
Make
hint.
it a great day. Make it a
No,
great day.
well, okay, that's one. But if you think you know all the answers, you don't understand the question.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you may not even know what other questions are.
Yeah, go ahead, say it. I don't know if I said it right.
Yeah, if you think you know all the answers, you may not even know all the questions.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And yeah, Ray, thanks for taking the time to do this. And I really appreciate it. And if you guys want to hear more from Ray, he's with us 6 out of 7 days at our 8:15 a.m. meeting. He expands on the daily reflections for us after we read it. Again, Monday, he's there every day except Sunday mornings, 8:15. Our meeting information is going to be in the description. But yeah, Ray, thank you very much. And you make it a great day. Make it a great evening.
Yeah, thank you, John.